Uh, so w- this this curiosity gave birth to SparkPro webinar series to spark ideas in all those curious kids like me to allow us to explore various careers. I'm thankful to all the volunteers who believe in this initiative and are giving their time to share their experiences and to enlighten the next generation. Our speaker for today is Stephen Mills. For the past 7 years, he has worked as a full-time scientific illustrator. He has created artworks for various levels of science textbooks and educational publications, ranging from topics from anatomy and to zoology. He has created illustrations for just about any science topic you can think of. He's a graduate from the Sheridan College right here in Oakville, where he studied technical and scientific illustration. In this webinar, Stefan will introduce us to his career path, what it takes to be a scientific illustrator, as well as explain his day-to-day routine. He will also explain how the textbook industry works, other possible careers for illustrators, and how to succeed as an artist. But before we start, let's just set up a few rules. This session will be recorded and posted on YouTube. And also, please keep your microphone on mute unless you're asking a question. If you have any questions during this session, you can type it in the comments, and we will have a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. At the end of the webinar, you could also ask your questions. All right, so without further any ado, let's welcome Stephen. Thank you, Stephen, for volunteering to be SparkPro's speaker. We are very excited to hear from you. And also, thanks to everyone who joining us today. And I hope we get to learn something new. Stephen, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Arav. So I'll get started here. So again, my name is Stephen Mills, and I've worked over 20 years as a scientific illustrator. Before I get started, I'm just going to go through a quick outline of the kind of things that I will be talking about. I will start by talking about my career path and what I've done to get to the position I am now, my education background, and I will also discuss what it is to work in an art studio and my day-to-day routines, and then I'll also discuss the textbook industry and the change it's going through at the moment, and I'll also then give a list of different careers an illustrator can go into. There's many of them, a lot of different options, and at the end, I will give you 5 tips on how to succeed as an illustrator. And with each slide here, I also have added some images, and I'll just quickly describe them to you. This first one is, if you can tell, it's an exploded view of a skull. What you may not know is the human skull is made up of many different little parts, and this is just showing how each part looks on it by itself as it explodes out. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to bounce around a little bit here because that's basically how my education was bouncing around. When I finished high school, it was back in 1988. So this is a long time ago. It was before cell phones, before the internet. And I wasn't quite sure what direction I wanted to go to. I know I loved art classes, and it was something that I wanted to do. So I ended up deciding to go to the University of Windsor, where I spent 2 years in their visual arts program. After 2 years, I was starting to question what I really wanted to do once I finished university. And at the time with visual arts, I was thinking I didn't really want to be an art teacher. I didn't want to work in a gallery. And I was really looking at possibly going into some kind of commercial field of art, something that's basically something that opens up more job opportunities for me. So I was very aware of the illustration program at Sheridan at the time, and I'd made the decision after 2 years at university that that was a direction I really wanted to go in. So I ended up going to Sheridan College right here in Oakville, and I enrolled into their technical and scientific illustration program. Now, back then, it was a 3-year diploma program. Today, it's now a 4-year degree program. So a lot has changed. Uh, so I went through that program, and at the end of the program, it's in 1994. Again, there was a lot of changes in illustration at that point. We were still doing very traditional artwork, pen and ink, airbrushing, marker renderings, all traditional medias of drawing. And at that time, computers were just starting to make their way into the illustration field. And we maybe had an hour a week of computers, very basic. And when I finished Sheridan College, I felt that I was missing that part of my education. So I ended up going to Humber College on a part-time basis where I took some digital imaging courses, basically learning how to use programs like Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator, as well as some other graphic design courses, just to get my computer skills up to par for when I entered my illustration career, that I would have that going for me. Um, so after about maybe a year after I graduated, I landed my job at a company called Imagining Art, and that's where I ended up spending the last 21 years. Uh, I one thing I always stand by is that you never stop learning. In the past 2 years, I've continued to take courses in Adobe After Effects, InDesign, Premiere Pro, anything I'm kind of interested in. I'll take a course in, and it's just important, I think, to continue learning. So, working in an art studio, Imagining Art is a company that specializes in creating digital artwork for mostly educational publications covering all areas of natural science. And that's where I spent 21 years of my career. It's a small studio, about 12 employees, and my workstation setup was a Retina 5K 27-inch iMac, so a pretty powerful computer because you're working with detailed artwork, which are large files. We usually also had a small second screen monitor and a Wacom Intuos Pro tablet. Um, if you're familiar with tablets, they're basically, it makes drawing a lot easier. It's the ones we use are the Intuos style, which are a black slate tablet, and they come with a stylus pen, and you're basically drawing on the tablet. It's not, you can't see it. It's not a screen tablet like there's ones called Cintiqs you might have heard of. You're looking at your screen while drawing on the tablet, so there's a little bit of a disconnect, but you quickly learn it to get used to it, and it's an excellent tool for drawing. It's a lot easier than trying to draw with a mouse. Okay, so my day-to-day routine. I'm just gonna go through like maybe how a project would start and end. Uh, as so once the projects come into the office, they're given to a project manager, which is in charge of the project. And the very first thing we want to do is develop a style sheet. The client will supply us with information in regards of what their textbook is going to look like and everything, all the technical specs that they want in the textbook. And with that information, we develop a style sheet, and then we have a launch meeting with the illustrators and editors to discuss what the book is going to look like and any questions that we have and things like that. And then from there, the manuscripts are scheduled out. Now, what a manuscript is, it's basically just it's directions. for the artist to follow when creating a piece of art. So they can pretty much look like anything, whatever the client sends us. Some of them are completely written out descriptions of what they want drawn, or others, like the one I have shown here, would be a little stickman sketch explaining what they want drawn. And it all depends. They come in all different ways, and we have to basically translate them and come up with a finished drawing, which you can see here. This one is basically just showing the uh, circulatory system and how it works during physical activity. Uh, so once the drawings are completed by us, we write down the times in the back of the manuscript. Everything is timed. We have a certain amount of time that we have to complete a drawing. That's just basically how they bill the client. And once we complete that, it goes off to the editors, and the editors will go through it, make sure that everything on the manuscript is on the piece of art, and any corrections or mistakes that are made, they'll point out and return the file to us, to which we make those corrections. And once the file is completed, it gets sent off to the client for approval. And if the client wants any changes, the files will come back, and it goes through the whole process again, where they're scheduled back into production. And this will go on. Usually books can take anywhere, depending on the size of the book and the project, from 6 months to over a year to complete. Science book textbooks are very big. There's a lot of artwork in it. Sometimes up to 300 pieces that have to be created or worked on, if it's a second or third edition book sometimes. So I'm just going to go through a few samples here of the books and the artwork that we do. We do a lot of textbooks for nursing and EMC training. EMC is emergency medical care, the ambulance training. And this is a sample of, I guess it's called, sorry, it's called handless defibrillation, where they put the paddles on the patient to restart their heart. Then there's medicine and surgical textbooks, and here's just an example of an illustration showing a knee surgery. We do a lot of anatomy and human physiology textbooks. Here on the left, you'll see a illustration, a black and white illustration of the heart. The reason why it's in black and white, this was actually created for a anatomy coloring textbook, or a coloring book, which is kind of a supplement book for the students to have, where they can color in parts of the anatomy for studying purposes. And it's just basically a study guide. And dentistry and periodontic textbooks. This was an example of a periodontic textbook where it was all implants and reconstructive dental surgery. So here you can see some images of implants. Environmental science textbooks and other technical publications. So here on the right, we have it's called a blast furnace. It's basically what's called a cutaway, showing the inside of the furnace and how it functions. The house you see is actually something I created for a book by, you may have heard of Mike Holmes. He's kind of a Canadian celebrity. He does a lot of home renovations shows you can see on TV. This is for one of his books called Homes Inspection, where it basically shows the exterior structures of a house and what makes up the exterior. So the evolution of textbooks. The textbook industry right now is going through a lot of changes. as you can see on the sample here on the side, the artwork is at top. That was something I worked on. I collaborated with the art director. He created the actual sketch, and I did the rendering part of it. So that would be the cover artwork. It would go onto the textbook. You can see the second image, and that's your textbook that you see today. And those are the things that are basically being phased out. And what you're going to see in the future and what you're already seeing today is a digital format of that textbook that can be put onto any of your devices, whether it's your laptop, your iPad, or your phone, and your home computers and such. So that is the transition they're going through right now. So it's been a slow and gradual process until of last year, where the world's largest publishing company of educational textbooks, Pearson Publishing, decided to stop all production of printed textbooks and completely make the switch to digital. So basically what this meant is they stalled the textbook industry to come up with a model of how these new digital textbooks will look like. And they're still working on that now. There's still a lot of uncertainty of what direction it's going to go in, but it's going to be a lot better than what they have today. A lot more modern. People are starting to realize that the benefits of a digital textbook, as well as the many possibilities that'll open up when making the switch as far as the digital platform. It's a lot more lighter to carry around. Those textbooks weigh a lot of money, a lot more. It's going to be a lot more inexpensive. Today, textbooks can range anywhere from up to $200 and $300, which is a lot of money to put out for a science textbook. So the new platform will most likely be a subscription model. It's hard to say. I'm just speculating right now. It's probably going to be a subscription model. So you're basically renting the book for the amount of time that you're in the course. There will be options to actually buy a digital version of it, I'm assuming. And I think a lot of the authors will also give you the option to buy the printed textbook as well, because a lot of people like to have that actual book as a keepsake or to use for reference in the future. So one of the benefits of also for going digital is it opens up a lot more immersive and interactive opponents to a textbook, where the future of textbooks will now contain interactive media objects, animations, and videos that will make the textbook even more powerful tool for teaching. This is all things that are being worked out right now. So the future of textbooks really is open, and it's going to make it definitely a more powerful teaching tool with everything else that they can now add to a digital textbook as compared to a printed one. So careers for illustrators, there are all different kinds of careers you can get into. I've listed a few, and I'm just going to quickly go over them. So medical scientific illustrator, which is what I do, they can go into the areas of education, which is what I'm doing. But there's also pharmaceutical, which they do marketing for pharmaceutical companies, anything to sell their products, they require illustrative work for. Medical legal is illustrators being hired to, let's say you have a person suing a company for an injury they received while in the workplace. So they would want, say, an illustration showing the injury, and just to explain what part of the body is injured, how it happened, to give people an easier understanding of what took place when you're involved in a lawsuit type thing. Technical illustration, that's more mechanical illustration, architectural design services. An example of that would be, well, architectural. If you've been driving down the road and seeing an area of land that's being used to build houses, and a company like Anatomy will have a big billboard saying "coming soon," and they'll show uh, an illustrated image of what the houses will look like. They can't take a photo of it because they haven't been built yet. So illustrators uh, draw what the houses will look like when they're complete. Um, so that's an example of that. Book illustration range from children's books, comic books, and graphic novels. It's pretty straightforward. Courtroom illustrators, if you've ever watched the news and you've seen they're talking about a courtroom case, and they'll have an illustration of somebody on the bench and being questioned or something like that. It'll just be a drawing. That's what a courtroom illustrator would do. Animators. I put animation down because animation, it's not really illustration, but it's a natural progression. A lot of illustrators go on to do animation. Back when I was in school, some of them would take illustration for 2 years, not even complete it, and then go directly to animations. Others would complete the illustration course and then take animation. It's just something a lot of people are interested in right now. There's a high demand for it. So for illustrators to go into animation, it's very natural for them because they have the skills, the drawing skills already, and it just works well. Fashion illustrators, it's pretty straightforward. Movie and the TV industry, a lot of opportunity there. There's matte painters. Matte painters basically, an example would be, say you have a science fiction movie, and they'd film the science fiction movie, have two characters talking to each other, and it'd be in front of a green screen. And then later on in production, they would place a background in that green screen. Maybe it's a futuristic cityscape or something like that. That would be an illustrator that would draw that and would be placed and that's how it'd be used in a movie. Storyboarding, again, in the movie industry, storyboarding is it's almost like a comic book. Every time they create a scene, they want to draw it out first, showing just little pictures of where the actors are standing or what's going on in each scene before they actually act it out and film it. So that's what a storyboarder would do. They would create this comic book style scene. Character development. Again, I'll use sci-fi movies as an example. Characters in the Star Wars movies like Yoda or Darth Vader all start out as drawings. People come up with these ideas of what they look like, and illustrators will create the image, and that's how they would build the character. The gaming industry. Gaming industry is huge right now. It's surpassed the movie and TV industry as far as being the biggest moneymaker in the entertainment industry. When I graduated, it pretty much didn't exist. There wasn't much of a gaming industry. Today, it's big, and a lot of the same type of jobs in gaming than in movie and TV. There's scenery illustrators, people who work on developing everything you see in the scene of a game, in the background, all the environmental elements, character development. Again, same as movies, you develop what these characters look like, and storyboarding, also the same. Every game follows some sort of type of storyline, especially the RPG games, the role-playing games. They'll have or sorry, not the role-playing. Anyway, storyboarding is basically the same. Yeah, it's just there'll be a story that you would follow. Fine art. Fine art is it has changed a whole lot with social media now being a part of it, because back in my day, fine art, we would call it the starving artist. This is someone who just loves to draw and paint and wants to sell their own art. And the process back then would be to go to a gallery, show them your work, and hope that this gallery will like your work enough that you can do an art show. And then once you have your show up, you'd have to market it and try to get as many people to come up to the gallery the night you're showing, and hopefully that some of them will buy your art, and that's how you'd make your living. It's a very tough living. Um, Today, it's a whole different thing. With social media, you can get your art out there quickly and to everybody in the world. And if you find a niche, something that people are really interested in, like say it's, I don't know, anime characters, and you draw them and you get a lot of followers, a lot of fan bases. You can sell prints online of your work for as little as $20 a piece and make a lot of money just doing that. Um, and yeah, that's how it's just changed a lot. It's a lot easier to get your work out now. Teaching is another one that's changed a lot. Uh, of course, you after you finish illustration, you can take teaching courses and go into teaching in school environments. But a lot of people now are teaching on the internet. People who have no experience teaching are building um, are building uh, are building subject matters like I don't. I'm trying to think of an example here. So Photoshop, I work with a program called Photoshop for illustrators. I could do a whole subject like that and make some videos of it and put together a program and download it to a place like lynda.com or Udemy, and people can buy my course. I can build this course and people would buy it. And it's a way to make a living now. A lot of people are using the internet to teach. And especially these days where we're having a lot of changes and a lot of people are learning online, and it's gonna that's the way things are gonna end up going in that direction. So it's a good area to get into. Art directors, something you got to work up to. You can uh, you have a job as a production artist in a company and move your way up to art director. The art director basically runs the show. They are in charge of all the creative development that occurs within a company. Um, freelancing is a lot of illustrators choose to go into this because it's working, it's being your own boss, it's working your own hours. It's very tough to start out in. It could take 3 to 5 years to establish a consistent client base. So it's a lot of hard work, but if you succeed in it, you have to really know how to market yourself. You can do very well doing that. Uh, Advertising companies, public relations and marketing, they all use illustrators to sell product. Newspapers, magazines, and other periodicals. You have editorial illustrators. Periodicals are things like, say, graduate students at universities are doing their papers on thesis in whatever subject matter they're learning, and they sometimes require illustrators to help them with their do artwork for their papers, their graduate papers. And then production artists is very it's a general thing. Production artists can mean anything. Large companies will have them do their logo designs, a lot of graphic design stuff, and as well as illustrative work for any of their clients or as a marketing tool and such. So these are just some of the careers you can get into. But it's always good to research and find out what area you would be interested in if illustration is a way you'd like to go. So how to succeed as an artist? I'll just give 5 short tips here, and I have a few little images to go with them. So number 1 is practice, practice, practice. With anything in life, the more you work on it, the better you're going to get. So it's especially important as an illustrator. You always want to be drawing. An example of this right here is this is my own personal artwork that I have what I call my digital sketchbook. It's my iPad Pro, and I use a software called Procreate, and I really love drawing bone art, so this is something I do in my free time. I did a study just on the human skull, and this is part of it. And basically, you got the front view, the side view, a bottom view, and then a top view with the top part of the skull removed, showing the inside where the brain would sit. Number two, research what you're interested in and focus your goals. So there are many areas of illustration that you can have a career in. Find out what it is you like. Is it science? Is it gaming? Or maybe it's the movie, or maybe it's movies or animation. Research that interest and find out if there's a high demand for illustrators and what career opportunities are out there. Then go for it. Then just work hard and build up your portfolio, and you can get those jobs. This illustration here is also just something I created for fun. Also, my sketchbook series, I like drawing birds, especially unusual looking birds. This one's called a rhinoceros hornbill. And once I had drawn the bird, the science part of me sort of kicked in, and I decided I wanted to do a little research and see what the bone structure of that bird was. And I found some reference photos of the inside of the skull and did a cross-cut section over top of my bird illustration. Number three, build your portfolio around your goals. So when you're when you going out for a job, so let's say that the greatest difference between the creative field than other fields is your portfolio is much more important than your education. Now, I know a lot of parents are saying right now they don't want to hear that, and let me just say this too. There are a lot of cases where illustrators have become successful that haven't gone to college or university, but you have to be a special talent for this to happen, and you have to be kind of lucky as well. I would never say that you shouldn't go to school for illustration because there's too many benefits to going to school. For example, the mentorship. You want to have access to those teachers who have the years of experience, and you can learn so much from them, and as well as building a community. Uh, the people that you go to school with in illustration are most likely the people you're going to end up working with after school is finished. And that community environment you cannot get uh, going out on your own or trying to learn it online as well. So I would definitely say the school environment is something you want to have, the education. So building your portfolio around the goals is basically keeping it focused. If you decide you want to go into the gaming industry, say, then have your illustrations represent that. If you have a whole lot of interests, that's great too. You can have build your portfolio. You can have 30, 40 of your favorite drawings available, but when you go out for an interview, you'll only want to have, I say, 10 at the most. And those 10 want to be focused on the job that you were going for. So that's what I mean by building your portfolio around your goals. This illustration here is kind of a logo I created for. This is a project I just did on my own where I wanted to create. I was learning this software program called Adobe After Effects, which is motion graphics, kind of like animation. And I gave myself a project where I wanted to do a 3-minute videos of birds, certain birds, and teaching kids about these birds. And I'm still working on it. I have one completed. I plan to do about 7 of them. So this was a logo that was used as part of those animations. Okay. 4, be part of an artist community. I explained that. sort of in the school atmosphere, but also use social media. You can present your talents everywhere now, and by using Instagram accounts and putting your artwork there and joining Facebook groups, starting a YouTube channel, um, are all ways to build a platform to get your work noticed and get a following, which could end up getting you other career opportunities. So it's a great way um, to sell yourself these days. And again, stuff that wasn't around when I was finishing school. And I'm only started getting into the social media type thing by setting up some of these. Um, so yeah, this is actually the image here is the first bird for the educational shorts that I was working on with my After Effects animation, the Laughing Kookaburra. This is all created in Photoshop. I used that. I was drawing with Photoshop with this one. And 5, never stop learning. I said that at the beginning. Always keep up to date with the software you work on a daily basis. Photoshop is constantly changing. It's a big program that I use, and I'll never learn everything about it, but I keep up to date with all the drawing techniques that are available with Photoshop. Don't be afraid to learn new apps that can be useful for your work, and learn about things that are a little out of your comfort zone too, like other forms of artwork in areas of graphic design or animation. Like I said, I was taking a course in After Effects. That was basically for my own interest. Motion graphics, a little different than just illustration, but you never know. Somewhere down the line, that could be useful for my career. So it's good to learn. And this is just another illustration from my sketchbook series. Just an African elephant. And that was created in Procreate on my iPad. And that is it. So thank you very much for watching, and it's now open for questions.
Wow, wow, Steve, that was awesome. So we'll be asking questions now. So from Ryan, our first question is: are there any free tools that can be used to start digital illustrations?
That's a good question. Let me think. There's a lot of free tools for the tablet. I'm trying to think. Autodesk is one. It's a very good one. And then I just got my iPad here. Look, Autodesk is a good one. Also, a lot of the illustration programs for the tablet aren't that expensive. $50 at most. One of the best ones is Procreate, which is, I think, somewhere around the $12, $13 price. The more expensive ones are around $15 or $50, which are Affinity Design is another one. But yeah, I would advise, if you can afford spending $15 or so, get Procreate for your tablet. You need, unfortunately, they only make it for the Apple tablets. So for any others, Android tablet, Autodesk is a very good one to use.
I have a question on that. I just a few days ago, I too tried drawing digital art a bit. Luckily, I had a spare Wacom tablet, And so I looked around for free tablets and free apps, and I found this illustration app called Krita. Do you know about it? Krita.
Krita.
Yeah.
It's called Krita. Yes, I've heard about that. I haven't had a chance to use it, but I also hear that's a good one as well. The best way to find out for drawing apps is what I do is I go on YouTube. Uh, there's a lot of people that review them, and you can find a lot of good information out there.
Okay. Thanks. So from Shaurya Mathur, he's asking, is a stylist necessary for drawing digital paintings or drawings?
I wouldn't say it's necessary. However, it's a lot more difficult to achieve what you want to achieve drawing with a mouse. Now, if you're drawing on a tablet or a cell phone, even a lot of them have finger sensitivity where you can use your finger to draw with. That works very. I've actually seen some illustrations that people have created with their finger, and it turned out really good, amazing stuff. So there are programs that are touch sensitive. I want to say, I believe Procreate is one of them. I've always used my Apple Pencil on Procreate, so but I'm pretty sure you can use your finger to draw on that as well. Just in the settings, you can change it. And there's a lot of other apps out there that you can do it. Trying to draw with a mouse is just very difficult to do, I find.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have. You can get all kinds of tablets too. They make cheaper ones as well if money's a concern.
Oh, okay.
They can get very expensive as well.
So our next question from John is, where can you sell art online?
There are different places where you can open up, I guess, shops, as you call them. I think ArtStation is one. Again, if you go online and research it, I don't sell any of my art online, so I'm not really familiar. If you do a little research on it, especially I find YouTube always the best one to go to. You can find video tutorials on how to sell your art online.
Yeah. And from Muskan, she is asking, can you sell art on eBay?
Yes, I believe you can. I don't know how the marketing process goes on eBay. It's, to me, the best place to sell your art would be on sites that specialize in that, because that's where people will go to look for art. So there's things out there. There's also I think it's called Redbubble. A lot of people turn their art into T-shirts and stickers. Stickers is a big thing for selling, and there's a few places. Teespring is another one. There are a few different sites you can go there to sell your artwork that way. Okay. And people go to those sites looking for that kind of stuff. So it's the best place to sell them.
Okay. From Ira, can you sell illustration can you get illustration apps on the iPad?
Can I what?
Can you get illustration apps on the iPad?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of them out there. The iPad has a lot more available, I think, than the Android tablets. The best one right now is Procreate. Best for your money. It's fairly cheap program. There's also Adobe has a new one out called Fresco. But for that, you need to have a Creative Cloud subscription, which is I don't really like the subscription format of Creative Cloud. I have one because I need it for work, but it's monthly payments, so you don't actually own the application. Yeah. but there's all kinds of other ones out there too that you can again go on YouTube and do a little research. But for the iPad, the Procreate is definitely the top one.
Yeah. So have you ever made just a random painting without in it, getting it on your head from Romer?
Um, I I'm not very good at doing the creative aspect, I guess you'd call it, of drawing. For me, I've always drawn with some kind of direction in mind. I'm only starting now, since I've gotten my iPad, to experiment with different types of drawings. Something in my head that I'll put out there. But for the most part, for the last 20 plus years, I've only done work that has some kind of point to it, some kind of educational point to it, where it's it's not really, I want to say it's not creative. It's definitely creative in a way, but it's not um, the type of creativity that visual artists would do. So yeah,
Okay.
but I'm trying.
There aren't many questions from them from the participants, but I have a few questions. So
Sure.
how like how when did you start thinking about becoming an illustrator, and like why a scientific illustrator?
Um, so basically, I've always kind of, even when I went to university, it was always in the back of my head that illustration would be something that I'd be interested in. And it wasn't until I actually started the program that I realized that I really enjoyed it. Um, and as far as scientific illustration goes, it was basically something I just fell into. Um, I I don't have a lot of science background, which some people find kind of amazing because I um, I basically got my job because of my portfolio. I knew how to. I have the drawing skills, and science is kind of something that I learned through the process. Uh, I don't think I could be doing what I'm doing right now if it wasn't for the internet, because I do rely on a lot of research with the stuff that it definitely helps you if you have that science background. There's another program other than Sheridan. The University of Toronto does a program called biomedical communications. You have to have a science degree. You have to do a 3-year degree program, I believe it is, in any kind of science that you're interested in, whether it's biology, anatomy, or botany or anything like that. And then after you graduate that, you can go into the BMC program, which is science illustration. And that helps if you have that science background. Uh, I've been lucky that I've also worked with a good group of people that have that kind of background that I can rely on for help if I come into any kind of struggles that I'm not understanding something. So I can come to them, and I use the internet a lot because there's a lot of information out there for things you don't know. So
Okay. So from so from so I have one more question.
it,
How is your illustrations helping and affecting the people?
um, I think because I work for a company that specializes in educational textbooks, I'm able to get my work seen by a lot of students, which is kind of exciting to me because it's nice to know that my work is being used to teach people about science. So that's kind of the area that I was lucky enough to fall into, and it's been really rewarding being able to do that kind of illustrative work.
So from Aryan and Avan Shinanda, How long do you spend on a drawing on average?
That's a good question. Uh, so the type of artwork that we have come in, some of them are there's two kinds. There's new art, and then there's something called pick up and modify. Pick up and modify is art that's already been created. So when a textbook comes out, you usually see every 2 to 3 years a different version. Let's say version one or version two, version three, version five, and so on. And so when we get those type of books and the artwork's already created, and sometimes they just want changes done to the artwork. If there's a mistake maybe that they didn't see the first time, or if they decided they wanted to be depict a little something different to the artwork or add something to it, then those ones could take anywhere from, depending how detailed the artwork, anything from 10 minutes to an hour or two. New artwork can take anywhere from 4 to 12 hours to work on, which doesn't seem like a lot of time for some of the more detailed things, but that's something that you learn when it in time. People are amazed when they come out of school and I show them a piece of work and I tell them it took me 4 hours to do, and they would think to themselves, well, that would have taken me a week or so to do in school. But when you're out in the real world and you've been doing it a lot, you get quicker and faster at doing it. So, and when you're working in the textbook industry, they expect fast turnaround. So you have to learn to be quick soon. There's a lot of different techniques to be quick at creating artwork that you'll learn. But yeah, so the bigger pieces can take anywhere from 4 to 12 hours.
Okay. So, what are some editing softwares that you use for animations?
Uh, so I don't do any 3D animation. It's basically just it's called motion animation, which is basically two-dimensional graphic animation, which the best one is Adobe After Effects. Um, Again, that's part of the Adobe product line, which you need a subscription to
Yeah.
get access to. The great thing about schools these days is, I know for Sheridan College, with your tuition, you get access to all those software packages that they create that Adobe has, and you can work on them from home. And I believe even after you finish your school, you get them for up to a year after you finish. You still have access to them. Now, as far as 3D animation, I have worked a little bit with something called Cinema 4D.
Mhm.
There's 3D Studio Max.
Yeah.
These are all very expensive softwares, by the way, to use. And then there's other two-dimensional animation. I know there's other cheaper or even free programs you can get for your iPads and such. I don't know. I can't think of recall any names of them from now. But again, you can do your research on YouTube and find out what's available out there.
How from Sake is a question. How can you do gaming illustrations?
Um, so I'm not that familiar with it, but again, if you were to go online and research it, it's something you can see a lot of people. If you go to websites like I'm forgetting the name of it now. Anyway, there are a lot of websites out there that are specialized for illustrators and artists, where you can find all kinds of artwork that people are posting, and you'll recognize the gaming type illustrations. A lot of them are fan art ones. They do their favorite gaming characters.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of people start getting into gaming illustration, is they illustrate their favorite characters in games and make that part of their portfolio just to show them that they can do that kind of stuff. And I don't know, as far as the education part goes, if the illustration program it's totally different than that when I was there at Sheridan, if they have any kind of opportunities in Sheridan for gaming, I'm sure they do. Um, but again, that's how you would
Yeah.
basically go about learning it.
Yeah. So from John, which illustration career would you recommend?
Sorry, illustration.
Career. Which illustration career would you recommend?
Uh, for me,
Which
you're
would
talking
you
about
recommend?
the software. The software you're talking about, like what I use to illustrate,
No, which
or
career in illustrations?
career. Oh, career. Oh, sorry. um, Again, it's all up to you. It's um, something that you're interested in, and the most important part is to do your research and find out if there's a high demand for that type of work. Uh, right now, animation is huge, uh, and anything to do with the gaming industry is huge. Uh, I go on all the time just to see what the job postings are, and I always see gaming companies um, like Rockstar, Ubisoft, all these gaming companies always advertising um, for different careers in the gaming industry. Uh, Animation is the exact same thing. There's just a lot of them out there, always looking for animators.
Okay. So just one more question for today. What can we do as children to start our journey as a illustration nor artist?
Um, what I suggest is just draw. Um, in your free time, if you like to do if you like to draw things, just do that. And the more you draw, you can do a lot of copying from pictures from books and stuff like that. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. Um, so yeah, just keep and keep a sketchbook. Uh, have a special book just for your drawings. Or basically, if your iPad, if you use that to draw with, you have all your drawings saved. I know Procreate basically saves it all for you in this little um, it's all organized in that. So yeah, just keep doing that, and then when it comes time to go to college, university, just look around and see what the best schools are. Sheridan's definitely one of them. So
Well, just another question that's related to that. Which college or university would you recommend in masters for graphic designers or for a user interface experience? From Shaurya.
um, I don't really know. I know I'm actually going. I'm going to be going back to Sheridan to take digital product design, which is user um, UI design, and it's a 1 year program. I'm just doing a certificate program because it's something I've kind of been interested in. Uh, as far as what are the best schools, I really couldn't tell you. Again, that's something you would have to do research on. Um, but as far as design in general, graphic design, Sheridan has always been a well-known one. Um,
Yeah.
there's other OCA, Ontario College of Art, is probably one of the best ones in Toronto. Um, Actually, it's OCAD now. It's called Ontario College of Art and Design. Uh, yeah, those are probably the two big ones:
Yeah.
graphic design and illustrative work in our area. So,
So that's it for today. And thanks a lot, Steve, for sharing such insightful information about the career path of a scientific illustrator. It was
oh well, thank you. I really enjoyed it. Thanks.
This session was really inspiring, and we really learned a lot from you.
Thank you.
We, I also would like to thank all the participants today. You've been a great audience. Thanks a lot for being part of the SparkPro community. I hope you're all enjoying these webinars And please also let me know if you're curious about any career you would like to know, or do you know any people you would like to present, who would like to present in this series. Also, please let me know if you have any ideas how to invite more participants to join. Our next webinar will be on 20th of June with Karthik Jayarajan, who works in the gaming industry. So I'm sure it'll be very interesting too. I will be sending the detailed invite soon. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the videos are posted there, and the link is in the chat window. Um,
Stefan, just wanted to say thank you for doing this. I learned a lot about a career as an illustrator. Goodbye.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome. No problem. I enjoyed it. I like talking about my work.
Yeah, I was really interested in what you were saying. It was great. And thank you, Arav, for organizing this event.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Stay safe and stay healthy.
You too.